to the API session. I'm going to talk a little bit about our API, about why APIs are fantastic. At least I think. I'm a huge automation fan. I love to automate as much as possible. So that's why I'm going to talk a little bit about our Zerto RESTful API. I'm not going to talk about my name. So everybody that wants to learn how to pronounce my name, there's a session at the party tonight. It's about 45 minutes. It's short and sweet. Just how we can pronounce Gijsbert. So we're going to skip the last name. That's Wednesday. 6 a.m. Anyone's interested? 6 a.m. You can get my last name on Wednesday. So that's all about my name. I respond to many things. So if there's any questions, hey, you, whatever, it's all fine. So first off, start with what's an API. There's many many people have different opinions about what an API is. I think this is one of the best ones. Application programming interface, basically how can I have two applications communicate with each other. It's a set of standards, it's a set of agreements between, it's a language. How can I say, do this for me? Without using a UI, but using scripts or using other applications, orchestration tools, automation tools. So that's basically what an API is. And why do we need APIs? Well, I like speed, so that's why I picked these two pictures. But I don't like to do it myself. So I like to automate it. So instead of me riding a bike, I'd rather ride a motorbike because then it's automated for me. I have a lot more speed, a lot more adrenaline, which is basically why we have speed, and not do it myself. We need to automate stuff, make our life easier, but also make sure we don't repeat mistakes. We want to make sure that it's automated, always do the same thing whenever we want it to. Now, with Zerto, there's a lot of stuff we can automate. So a few examples. What can I do using the Zerto API? What can I automate? So these are just a few examples. So I'm trying to keep this a little bit interactive. So that's why this whiteboard is here. I love whiteboards as well. And I'm going to try and do some of the workflows of the specific use cases I mentioned. And if we have some time left, which unfortunately might be an issue, I'd love to draw like a use case out of the audience and see how I would workflow it and how I would do the automation behind that. Could be Zerto, could be related to Zerto and VMware, doesn't really matter to me. But do the workflow of that process, of that API thingy on the whiteboard. Because, and I'll get back to that on a different slide as well, I think workflow is one of the most important things in automation. The first thing you need to do is not find out how to use an API, but what do I want to achieve? And use a workflow to design it, basically. So we can do many things. And most of these are actually described in our automation white paper. Could be VRA deployment. If I have 100 hosts, I don't want to do a manual VRA installation. I want to automate it. If I have a recovery, I want to create a recovery plan, have boot order basically of VPGs. I don't want to do that manually. I want a script for that. So it's repeatable and it has the same result every time I do it. Now all these can be found in our automation white paper, including the scripts, the PowerShell scripts you need to actually perform that. So we do a lot of PowerShell. So the workshop tomorrow, also a lot of PowerShell. It's not limited to PowerShell. If you like Python, use Python. We even have Python examples in our documentation. You can use whatever you're comfortable with. I think PowerShell is a good option. It's actually great. You can do a lot with PowerShell. PowerCLI with VMware allows you to do a lot as well. Many examples out there, so that makes it a little bit easier to get started with. Now, how do I start? First thing, like I said, build a workflow. What do I want to do? Draw a basic workflow, because that will give you the steps that you need to take, the steps that you need to perform to actually get to the result you want. Especially the more complex the automation part is, the more you need to rely on a workflow. You need to adjust your workflow. Every time, that workflow will be done in scripts. Could be multiple, could be a single one. But I think, again, workflow is the most important thing. Then, download our API reference guides. These basically show you what's available in our API, what you can do with our API, and what type of responses you can expect from our API. So this is a really important one. I still use this almost on a daily basis. It also changes. Every version has some kind of update to the API. We're going to release more API features. It's going to be more extensive. You can do more and more with it. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the end. And of course, download our API white paper because that has the examples in there. That has the actual scripts in there that you can deploy and use. Now I'm going to go through a couple of our APIs, or actually a couple of our API calls, and show you what you can do with them. Like I said, automation could be complex. You can do a lot of things with automation. I'm going to have a couple of use cases there. I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to whiteboard that one, the workflow of that one. Could be a complex one. There's a few complex in there. Could be an easy one. We've got the Vray API. Basically, this allows you to install VRAs, upgrade VRAs, edit VRAs, everything you need to do around the VRA. This is also the base of our VRA deployment script. And I think it's really useful, especially when you have multiple VRAs, or actually multiple hosts. As soon as you, I think Darren said it yesterday at the advanced training, as soon as you have more than 5 hosts, you can basically automate it, especially when you need to upgrade as well. Now, a few of the examples, what can I do with the Vray API? One of them is mass deploy VRAs. Now, mass deploy VRA is actually one of the examples we have in our automation white paper. The other one is mass upgrade VRAs. As soon as there's a new version, you want to upgrade the VRAs. One thing we're going to do is we're going to add it to our installer. This is a new feature, but I might not always want to do that. I might want to do it in a controlled way. So how do I do that? The other one might be I'm adding a new host to my environment, and I want to automatically install a VRA on this. Now, this probably needs more than just the Zerto API. This also relies on probably vSphere APIs, other orchestration or automation tools you use. Now, one of the questions I have, who is using any type of automation or orchestration platform in their environment right now? Now, I don't want to use a multiple choice question, but VMware VRO or any other tools? Something else. Okay, that's good. But I think orchestration tools is really important. So especially the more complex they are, like CA process automation is one I actually kind of like, has the ability to build the workflow into that tool and just attach your scripts to it and get the right parameters out of it. Now, what I'm going to focus on right now is mass upgrade VRA. Actually, a script I'm working on, which is not even finished yet. But I had a test version, and actually a customer, actually a service provider in the Netherlands is one that used it and upgraded 869 VRAs using that script. Now, I'm going to take you through the workflow that I actually built to do it with. Of course, the first thing we need to do is find out what type of VRAs we have, how many VRAs. So we have the Vray API, and what we're basically going to do is list the VRAs. Step 1. What VRAs are there in my environment? Can everybody see this, by the way? Yes? Good. Now, there's a couple of things we can do. We can export it to a CSV file and edit it, or we can just import it using PowerShell, for example, put it in an array, and use that in our scripts. And then there was light. So based on that list, so this is going to be the input of the next step, I'm going to actually upgrade the VRAs. Now, let's say I want to do that one by one. So what I'm going to do is for each VRA, so now it's going to be my Dutch, so I have to spell English here, so that's going to take a while every now and then. I'm going to upgrade the VRA. So the thing is, when I list the VRAs, I get their unique identifiers, and using those unique identifiers, I basically do an API call sending like VRA/upgrade/unique identifier. That's all I need to do. So I just loop through the list I have of VRAs and do it. Now, actually I want to make this a little bit more complex. So what I want to do is I want to check if this VRA is upgraded and then start with the next one. That's useful for error handling. One other really important thing in doing automation is error handling. I don't want the script to continue to do it when the first one fails. So what happens with a VRA upgrade script, it actually outputs the task ID. And the task ID is, every time you do an upgrade, it opens up a task in Zerto, and it shows you if it's completed, what the percentage is. So what we're going to do right now is actually monitor the task, because we also have the task API that we can use, pull the information. Let's say we're going to pull it every 10 seconds and see what's the status. And as soon as it's completed, complete, yes or no. If it's yes, upgrade the next VRA. If it's no, automation. No, it's not completed, throw out an error. So now what I can do, also in the script, the more complex you do, the more options you have in your script, the more complex your workflow will be. I could start another VRA upgrade, or I could just error out so we can investigate what went wrong. Now, what I did is not only use the VRA API, I also used the task API to monitor the tasks. I think especially in PowerShell, if you know the basics of PowerShell, if, then, for each, there's a lot you can do. Just by using all kinds of default options you have in PowerShell, you can find it and copy paste it from Google. That's how I started, and build your script for that. So in the end, if we had all the VRAs, things I can do with PowerShell, I can send out an email. So let's say I'm done, send out an email report to a specific email address, and we're done. So the more complex you make these type of workflows, the more complex you do you make the automation tasks, the larger this is going to be. So I don't want to spend all of my time drawing on a whiteboard these type of workflows. But I think the more you do this, the better your end results will be, and the more you'll understand what you need to do to automate things. I'll leave it on there for a while. I'm going to wipe it as soon as I'm to the next one. Another one, and this is one of our more recent additions to the product, is the VPG Management API. Now, there's only 3 things you can do. It's get the VPG settings, create a VPG, and change the VPG settings. But because there's a lot of VPG settings, of course, you can do really complex things with that. So some of the use cases for that is automated VM protection. This is actually something we discussed on ZertoCon 2016. Also something that's in our API white paper. But one of the other things is mass re-IP, change re-IP settings. If you have, even if you have 10 VMs with multiple NICs and you want to change all the IP addresses, you don't want to do it manually. You want to automate it. So what we use for this one is actually CSV files. And CSV files, basically you open up in Excel, you change it, mass change it, and then we re-import them into the API. So I'm quickly going to do that workflow. Actually, I'm going to do it in more detail on the workshop. Actually, it could be Darren that's going to do that one. Oh, that is Darren. So Darren is going to help me out with that one and actually show you how it works in PowerShell in more detail. You're going to see us use a lot of CSV files because they are cool. Let's see if I can automate it again. Nope. So first thing I need to do is a couple of things. One, I can use a CSV file and I can pre-create it. What we're actually going to do is export it first. So export the VPG settings. One of the things we can do is list the VPG settings. That will result in a CSV file. So this CSV file we can now use as input to import the VPG settings. It will list all the virtual NICs that are attached to those VMs. We can change all the settings, and we can import them and apply them to all the VM VM NICs we have. So we changed that CSV file. Of course, we didn't make any mistakes. And we're going to import them into Zerto. It's as easy as that. This is a really simple workflow. If you look at the scripts tomorrow, it's a little bit more complex than that. But from a workflow perspective, it's exporting the settings to a CSV file, edit that CSV file, whether I'm using Excel, CSV Ed, which is one of my new favorite tools, to change CSV files. And then use that CSV file with the change settings, import them, and basically do exactly the same, but the other way around. Keep hiding this control thingy. Now, besides the VPG management one, which focuses around VPG settings, we also have the VPG API, which focuses on operations. We can do failover operations, failover test operations. We can pause VPGs. We can resume them, start a clone of that, get information on all the checkpoints we have, status information, and also delete a VPG. Be careful with that one. Now, some of the use cases are create a recovery plan, which I'm going to discuss in the workshop. Create customized reporting, which is also an example that we have in our automation white paper. And I can do automated failover testing. Now, one of the interesting things about automating VRA or VPG operations is that you can do really cool stuff with that. One of the things is, and this is an example, an actual use case is a CSP that uses Zerto has built an additional offering around this for like malware antivirus type of operations. What they do, they are a disaster recovery as a service provider. They have on-premise customers replicating into their cloud. Now what they do is they have an automated failover test starting. On the VMs booted on their environment, they will start antivirus scanning, malware scanning, do some kinds of penetration tests on the software. Based on that, they will send out a report to the customer saying, hey, you've been infected with this VM. But they're taking it a step further. What they actually do is then they start going back in time. They're going to start the journal. They limited it to 72 hours. That's a choice. And what they're actually going to do is they're going to rewind it every hour, take it an hour back, start the VMs again, scan again. And they're going to send you a report what checkpoint to use to recover to that didn't have that malware virus or a vulnerability in it. Now, these are some really cool stuff you can do with the API. Of course, there's other APIs they're going to use. They integrate with the VMs directly, but that's just only one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is automated application testing. One of the things I would like to see is failover tests are great, but there's still, a lot of companies still have to do manual testing of the application. Why not automate it? We can automatically do a failover test, then read the VMs, get access to those VMs, we know the credentials, we know the IP addresses, and start testing those applications. There's all kinds of tools out there. I can even use PowerShell if I want to actually automate the testing of my applications, just get a report out there, and I'm done. No manual intervention. There are many types of tools that can use to actually do that. I'd said CA process automation is one. There's a lot of open source tools out there. If there are applications, web-based applications, you can use Selenium to automate that. There are other tools that do really cool stuff around OCR. So you can start an application. If it gives you an error, it can actually read that error and report it back to you, even though that application doesn't have an API or there's no way to automate it from the application itself. And there's a lot available in the open source world as well that you can actually use for that. Now, one of the things about automation is it takes a lot of time to automate it, but the results and the return on investment is really huge. Because after you automate it, you can focus on the real cool stuff, the project you already have, upgrades you need to do on other platforms, because you've already automated most of the other things like application testing. Now, the workflow I'm going to draw for this one, let's do the automated failover testing. And I'm going to add the use case of the cybersecurity ones. Any type of antivirus scanning, anti-malware scanning, those kind of things. Now, in automation, I also do a lot of home automation right now. I'm a bit of a geek with that. So there's a couple of things you need to take into account. One of them is there's a trigger. Let's say right now it's a scheduled failover test. People have said, OK, I want you to scan all my systems on every Sunday, every week. So the trigger is it's Sunday. So right now, it's Sunday. So what will happen is they will go to, did I spell that correctly? Yeah, sort of. Don't mind my writing. I'm going to start a failover test. This is just an operation in Zerto. On the API, I can select the VPGs, and for every VPG, I can start a failover test. Now, in the failover test, we already have some automation built into the product, like boot orders and those kind of things, Vray API settings if I need to. So that will be done by Zerto itself. But now I'm going to start all those VPGs. So once those VPGs are started, I'm going to log into the VMs using, actually, I don't even know what type of product they use, but let's say antivirus software. And what it's going to do is, based on the information they pull from their own system, they have a self-service portal, I'm going to log into the VMs and start scanning. Now, the results of that will be put into a PDF. And once that is done, the PDF will be sent to the customer. With all the results. Now, in this case, everything was correct. No issues, no viruses found, no malware found. So customer's happy. Sunday, Monday, logs in, checks his PDF. Nothing going on. So that's when we want to do nothing and wait for the next Sunday. Now, on Friday, someone opens up a nice email stating that he has a Nigerian prince that has millions of dollars, just click on this link. Of course, by the way, did anyone get that message? I think it might be in a UK newspaper where they found millions and millions of dollars in a Nigerian house. So they would actually, it does exist. And nobody ever got their millions. But they're infected with a virus now. So the antivirus tool can also send out a message that, hey, I've been infected. And now a different process starts. So what it's going to do, it's going to start a failover test. If you can see, I'm using different terms now, from a checkpoint an hour ago, minus 1 hour. And it's going to repeat exact same steps. Now, in the end, let's say they went back 3 hours, or let's say 24 hours, just before that guy opened up that email and clicked that link, and they did not find that virus in that system. They're going to send out a PDF saying, or a mail saying, well, if you want to recover, we didn't find that virus in that VM 24 hours ago. And this is just one of the examples of how you can use the API to automate things, to automate different offerings. I'm not sure, are there any CSPs in here? Just great idea, isn't it? It's just new service. On-demand cybersecurity threat scanning, just throwing it out there. But you can use the API to automate all of that. And this is just one thing. You can do automated failover testing, just applications. Check if the applications are still there, if they respond, if all the data is in there. Many other examples we can go through. Now, what's next? This is all existing. This is all API stuff you can do already. But there's more. So specifically for the ISPs in here, one of them is already in there. That's the Zork API, which actually released in our update 2 of 5.0, which allows you to create organizations, Zerto organizations, Zorks, in the ZCM using the API. So you can automate customer onboarding. What's coming up is ZCC API, automatically deploy ZCC. Make sure your customers can connect from on-premise to the ZCC. If you combine that with any type of software-defined networking, you can automatically deploy the VPN appliance, make sure that customers can connect to it, have the ZCC created, have the ZOR created, assign all the resources, and make sure that they have an end-to-end onboarding all automated. Of course, service profiles. It's going to be something that we're working on as well. Automated service profile creation or editing. And that's just one thing. The more we do, the more we add to the API, the more flexibility you get to integrate it with any type of other solution. One of the things that, for example, the VPG API is used for as well is monitoring. Integrate it with your own application, with Nagios, PRTG, I don't know what, SolarWinds. I can pull information from that API, get RPOs, and log them into my system that I use for SLA reporting. Maybe I don't want to use reports. I want to use my own tools for that because it's automated from my own tools. I used to do that myself, pull the information, do RPO calculations based on all the information I just pulled from the API with your SLAs on it. So those are some really powerful stuff you can do with the API. Now basically this was all of my content. What I actually wanted to do, and hopefully that's going to work out, I have a large audience, so there should be at least one use case that someone wants to go through and how you could possibly automate it with the API. It's a bit of a risk, but who has something they would like to do with the API that I can workflow for them? Oh, not too many. That gentleman in the back, sorry, he was first, but if I've got time left, I'll take yours as well.
So we do fully managed VRAS, and the problem with that is when everything can be fully accessed to the portal, you can read only at this point. We have some customers who just want to get daily, weekly email. And I was told that the API could be used for that.
So daily reports based on?
Maybe RPO.
Okay, sure. Okay, so the question is, I want to use the API to pull, let's say, historic type of RPO date and get a daily, weekly, monthly report?
Right, yeah. Want to see that it's been
You want the complex one or you want the easy one? Okay. I knew it was going to say that. Do both. Now, so like I told you, we can use the VPG API to pull the information, the status of the VPGs, also get the actual RPO out of there. So I'm going to use that one. So there is an example in our automation white paper that uses the VPG API and then basically pulls the information as much as you want into a CSV file. Now, I'll do that one first. Now, this is extremely easy because it's going to be one. It's get the VPG information or get the VPG status. So if I ask for certain information from the API, I get that back in a certain format. It could be XML, could be JSON. So I'm not going to go into what is XML, what is JSON. But you can then interpret that information with PowerShell and let's say only output the information you need into a CSV file. So what we actually do is output that into a CSV file in a separate line every time we run this script. Now we can do more advanced things like, okay, generate that CSV file and archive it daily or weekly or monthly. Now, then based on that CSV file, I can create reports using Excel or automate it using a system I have. Now, I'm going to use an example right now, which is not something I did with Zerto, it's something I did with another product, but is useful for this one. Instead of pushing the information to a CSV file, I pushed it to a MySQL database. And basically, this was just a running task. This was a scheduled task. I ran every minute. So let's run this every minute using a scheduled task, and it pushed that information into MySQL. Now then I had another task that was running that was actually sent reports. So that also used a MySQL database. It was actually a different one. And in this MySQL database was customer information, like email addresses, but also the service they took. They were able to get reports, resource reports was this, based on an infrastructure as a service platform. They could do it weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, whatever. So let's say this customer is having a weekly report. This ran every day and also kept track of when we send it. So let's say it's a week ago that they got the report. It pulled the data from that MySQL database, generated an email, also attached the data in a CSV file so they could use it in their own tools, and send it out to the customer. Now, this looks really simple. Of course, there's a lot more complexity behind it. But everything I just told you, you can find examples of. You can find examples of how to pull information from our API, get that back in XML, push it to a SQL server, push it to something else, use a CSV file. We have one customer that's using the CSV file and basically build a macro, I'm not sure how that's pronounced in English, apologies, in Excel, and generate a report based on that. They had different SLAs for different times of days. One reported monthly to the board, to the management, and that's what they use the API for. Does that answer your question? I'd love to talk about it a little bit longer, if possible for you, but I think I have only 3 minutes left. Please tell me it's a fast one.
Okay. So this is probably a more simple one. Let's say I have 400, 500 VPGs. They've all been created with the default setting of the warning that tells me you need to test your VPG every 6 months.
Yes.
The guy you created was about to change that. Now we got the other warning policy going on. We want it to be free. How would we go about automating VPG settings, each one of those VPGs, to set it to NA?
First of all, if you don't test your failovers, you don't have DR. No, just kidding. So the answer would be do a scheduled failover test. The error is gone. No. So basically, what we can do is just as we've done with the NICs but this is actually an easier one. Is use our VPG Management API and basically push out those settings. So what I want is a list of VPGs I want to apply it to. So I can get a list of VPGs. That could be outputted to a CSV file, but if you want to do it for all of them, you can just use this one. Use our VPG Management API. And use as input. So basically every time, a VPG settings is a JSON framework or JSON template you can use. Just use the part that you want to apply. So in this case, I have JSON, which is going to change my test reminder to none. And as this is a default setting, it's the easy one, we can just apply it for all the VPGs. So for each VPG, I'm going to make it more like for each VPG, use the JSON input, change test reminder. That's basically it. It's really easy to do, actually, thanks to our VPG API, which we only added recently, but definitely something you can do using that one. Any other questions? I don't have a lot of time left. Do I still have time left? Oh, wonderful. I thought I only had I thought I had 45 minutes. Cool stuff. Yes.
You mentioned using the ZCM and ZCC APIs. So could you automate onboarding a client and like provisioning an org in vCloud Director?
So, question is, if we have those ZCM, ZCC APIs, the more CSP-focused APIs, could I automate onboarding and VCD org creation?
Yeah, so like onboard the Zerto portion and have it kind of interface with vCloud Director and spin up their org in vCloud Director.
I would say yes. Reason why, I know a little bit about the VCD API. So what you can actually do, I'm not going to draw this one, but it's first thing you need to do is with onboarding of a customer, let's say this is the way I used to do it. Customer signs up in our portal, leaves all the information it needs. Next thing, it starts off a workflow. First thing we need to do is create their environment in our cloud. In my case, I use CloudStack API, create the customer, create the resources, set the limits. Same thing you can do with the VCD API. I can create an org, can assign the right resources, can set all the settings I need based on templates, based on the information the customer gave. As soon as that is done, I can start the ZCM onboarding, create the Zorg, assign the right VCD information based on the VCD org I just created, or VDC org VDC I just created. Then deploy a ZCC based on the network settings of the customer, and so on and so on. So it needs a little bit more integration with VCD API as well, but definitely something you can do.
I've got the automated provisioning of the client through vCloud finished. So like exporting that, the required settings to use into the ZCC wouldn't be difficult.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Cool. I saw another question. Yes.
Replacing a vCenter has always been pretty painful, especially for the 200 VPGs and 2,000 VMs. Can you use the API to, you guys reconfigure VMs, reconfigure VPGs, something like that? Can you use the API to replace a vCenter just inside of Zerto?
So the question is, can you use the API to replace a vCenter? Specifically when I've not upgraded a vCenter but had a new vCenter, so everything in the background, MoRef IDs, you name it, is all new. So basically the Zerto, it's a new environment. That's a little bit trickier. Partially because of we're depending on the MoRef ID, so we've done some changes in 5. So for example, if you remove a host and re-add it to the vCenter, there's no need to basically remove the ghost VRA and those kind of things, so it's being adopted. But with an entirely new vCenter, it's a little bit more complex. So right now, one of the things that's not in the API, which is on the roadmap, is pre-seed settings. So that would be the tricky part.
Yeah, that would be probably
Yes.
the easiest thing for us as users to be able to just point at the VM and say, browse the precedents.
Yes. So basically, what my answer would be, yes, you can absolutely do that as soon as we added the pre-seed settings to the VPG Management API. Yes. I think definitely you should talk to, and I'm gonna call out some names here. So product management, they're all here. I think he's in the back right there. Wonderful, Tamir. He's the product owner of the API, at least most of the API stuff. Definitely talk to him. And this is one of the use cases. I can think of many more, but definitely talk to him a little bit about that. Any other questions? So I'm gonna. Oh yes, last. So license audit based on the VMs that they are actually running. I would say yes, but my answer is yes to a lot of questions. Well, you need some kind of third-party license auditing tool. But as soon as you can bring up the VMs in your environment and have access to them, you could definitely run that. I've seen some people do it using just regular WMI type of see what kind of applications are installed and then list that into some kind of VPG or some kind of CSV file and have that sent to the customer saying, hey, this is what we see in your environment, and if you match it to these kind of licenses, you're missing about 70 SQL licenses. Yeah, so definitely something you can build.
So we're a managed service provider. We have about 10 data centers all across the world.
Yes.
And our Zerto deployment is all paired through an MPLS.
Mhm.
So it's all kind of layer 2 all the way across the world. But doing upgrades to 10 different sites can be tedious sometimes.
Mhm.
So aside from the VRA deployment, can we do automated CVM upgrades? Or is that more OS level?
That's because, so we deliver our ZVM install, basically it's a packaged MSI file, so you can definitely do that. We have actually successfully been able to silently deploy the ZVM. So I think the exact answer I should probably get back to you today or tomorrow, but I think it's definitely possible. And after that, so with the new features coming up of automatically upgrading VRAs, we might also add that, or you can do it in a controlled way using the API. But it's more of an OS type of deployment than a API type of deployment. Yeah, but also if you want to talk about upgrading in a CSP environment, I'm going to call out another name. Chen Sietner is here as well, or Chen, I'm not sure if she's in. She introduces herself as Chen, but because I'm Dutch, I can pronounce her name, so I'm really proud of that. She's here, and she can definitely talk about CSP and upgrading and those kind of things. Are you also offering like a draw service with like on-premise customers?
Yeah, we do both.
Definitely talk to her.
Excellent. Thank you.
Another question.
Another service provider here. We have some customers with many hundreds of VPGs protected both ground and cloud sense. Due to a confluence of bad things happening recently during an upgrade, we wound up having to rebuild all of their VPGs. And in that specific instance, we had thought how great it would be if we could hold all of the VPG settings, place them into an archive during the maintenance action, and then use those as the ability to rebuild VPGs. Do you see that as something that could be feasible in Audit?
So question is, rebuilding VPGs, can I somehow export all the settings of the VPGs and use that to rebuild it? So the part of my question, part of the answer would be, if the VPG API, management API has pre-seed support, you can definitely export it and import it. Yes, yes. Otherwise, you would need to use like the XML file that we export on a daily basis, and use that XML file as an input.
I'm thinking more as kind of a process that we put in place for large actions as a CSV.
Yeah, sure. But definitely something that can be feasible using that. Yeah, also, every time you think of something and it's not in the product yet, make sure you head over to product management. Yes, sir.
Question is related to VCD environment. So the current failure testing report available on CPM reporting list all the steps, but it seems like it does not specifically list the VCD related steps. So is there any special documentation, anything specific to VCD where we see all the costs being during the failover testing? Like the reflection related costs being
I don't think that's in the recovery reports right now.
it does not show yet.
No.
Manually simulate the situation and find out if we see some slowness in the overall failover timings where the spare environment is
Yeah.
we see 10 minutes in environment.
Yeah. So.
So those are the steps.
Yeah, I don't think that's anything we have right now that's like visible in the UI or exposed through the API. It's definitely something we can see in logging. but I think you need more insight from the product itself. Yeah, yeah. So not right now, but definitely talk to product management around that. Sure.
The new VCC and API, that could let us obtain a list of the IPs, both sides, and all the VCCs, and for example, the remote IP for the VDMs. We can report on that.
I would say yes, but I haven't seen the actual API yet or the results of the API. Maybe Tamir knows. Listing ZCCs with using the API.
I don't think we provided the list.
Okay.
We provided installing,
Okay.
but I will check that and follow on to be able to obtain or set the exact route.
He's the right guy, though. Sorry, Tamir. Didn't want to put you on the spot, but yes, absolutely. Any more questions? Yes.
Sorry.
No, my favorite question asker.
Can we interact with specific site settings like throttle scheduling or throttling or
Commit policies.
yeah, stuff like that. Is there an API to manage the site settings?
No, site settings are not yet exposed using the API. No. The? Oh yeah, the license is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the license is we've got pairing of sites in the API now. So that's something we have. So you can do that using the API as well. Any other questions? Oh yes. Sorry about that. Missed you.
I haven't had much of a chance to use it, so it might already exist. But in 5.0 onwards, does the API already integrate with all the new Azure things like pulling information about the remote sites that were replicated to in Azure, like the instances, the target there, and all that? So like for example, if I want to like get pull all the VPGs and get information about like the instance set for each VM, is information like that already integrated with the API?
I don't think the ZVM API or the VPG API is available on the ZCAs. So you might be able to pull the information from the site you're replicating from, so the protecting ZVM. Just not sure on all the settings and how they would look like. But that's fairly easy for us to find out and check. So the question was, can I pull all the information? This is for the recording. Can I pull out the information around Azure? If I replicate into Azure, can I get those VPG settings and what's the target resource groups and storage accounts, if I have the terminology correct? Any other questions? If not, oh.
Sorry, I got
No. Shoot.
So one of the features that for me is missing in the UI is the ability to sort by data store and show me which VMs are
Yep.
targeted to which data store. Is that something I could do through the API and pull a report based on data store?
Actually, I think that's in our automation white paper.
Oh.
And it's or let me see, at least as on target VRAs, right? Yeah, so you can pull, yes, you can do it, because you can really easy pull all the information from the VPGs, put it in a CSV file, import it into Excel, and then just auto filter it and just say, okay, only show me the VMs with this data store as, or this VRA as a target, definitely. No more questions. Good. If you have any questions, I'll be here today, tomorrow. Please join my name pronunciation session tonight. I could also answer some API questions. And thanks for your attention.